welcome to the channel. I've managed to obtain all the new essences for the Necromancer available at Inferno V difficulty. In this video, we'll go through each of them so you can see how they work in action. Since there are a lot of new viewers on the channel, I just want to mention that in videos like this, I usually remove most of my equipment to ensure that other effects don't interfere with what we're testing. So don't pay attention to the lower difficulty level or the relatively low damage indicators. Also, consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't already, so you don't miss out on other interesting videos. With that being said, let's get into the first essence. This is Death's Disseminates for Grim Scythe. In my opinion, it's a very interesting option, primarily because it's an essence that allows you to activate Grim Scythe from a distance, and this is not very usual for this skill. Moreover, we use it as a debuff on a single target, and then other attacks on that specific target automatically trigger Grim Scythe, which also damages all surrounding enemies. If the target dies before the debuff expires, it will transfer to the nearest enemy. It works great when applying damage over time effects because the scythe activates with each tick. But it also works well with other continuous attacks and, theoretically, should be most effective for builds with a high attack frequency. However, I suspect that this skill is very likely to have some hidden cooldown limitations. Nevertheless, I wouldn't sleep on this essence because it synergizes with all possible builds, such as dot purging and vortex builds. Additionally, it can be a solid option for both PvE and PvP, especially if you want to focus on a single target while staying safely in the back. Additionally, we can equip the new head essence, but it's not a requirement since it works with any type of Grim Scythe, and this is also an interesting option. It's a very similar effect to the one from the Flagellant set. So with Grim Scythe, we apply an effect that after 5 attacks deals additional damage. So combining these two essences should activate that small scythe indicator above the enemy. Filling it up will result in additional damage. But as I mentioned earlier, you can use this with any other Grim Scythe essence. And honestly, it's also a solid essence for increasing burst damage. I would definitely test it in different configurations. Next is the Legs essence, probably the one I've been looking forward to the most. Unfurling Revival switch our Dark Curse into summoning skill now. Now we summon spectral hounds which rush the enemies and deal summon damage. And it's worth mentioning that this works very similarly to the spiders from Corpse Explosion, except wolves do not explode, although this seems to be more mobile, similar to the Crusader's summons. I'm also curious whether the wolf model used as an asset that will belong to the druid class. Nevertheless, the new spectral hounds seem like an interesting alternative to Dark Curse. Keeping in mind other essences that synergize with the curse, we could create some really unique configurations. The only noticeable drawback is the short duration of this skill. Speaking of Dark Curse, we also need to mention the new shoulder essence. Ostalagg seems very similar to an already existing essence, but this one uses a different slot. Using Dark Curse now causes enemies to explode upon defeat. Interestingly, this can be used alongside the new spectral hounds, allowing you to summon them while also marking enemies. What isn't mentioned in the description, but can be observed in practice, is that when using the new shoulder and leg essence, your wolves also get marked. This means they explode when their duration ends, making this synergy closely resemble the old spiders from Corpse Explosion. The next highly anticipated essence is the new Offhand. Guard the Loom now summons a skeletal mage on your back, similar to the Crusader's banner. And I have to admit that at the first glance I was pretty excited about the potential of the new Bone Spirit. Its functionality is very similar to the Wizard's Arcane Torrent, which was and still is a very solid skill, automatically targeting everything around. I think everyone would agree that having something similar for the Necromancer would be really awesome, and now we finally have it. Except we don't. Since the Necromancer is currently an inferior version of the Wizard in almost every aspect, at least in terms of similar mechanics, this case is no different. The new Bone Spirit is extremely slow, deals very mediocre damage, and its only real advantage is auto-targeting. Even using the new armor essence, Skin to Bones, doesn't change much, because by the time the new Bone Spirit targets the same enemy, its duration is likely to expire a bit sooner. I hope that the new Bone Spirit gets some sort of remake, because it's a very interesting essence, but unfortunately, in my opinion, it has too weak stats. I personally would also like to see new assets used for the new essences. This one might suggest that we summon a skeletal mage and deal summons damage. However, it's still a skill damage. I believe a new model, or at least a changed tint or color, would be highly appreciated. When it comes to armor essence, it definitely works better for the old Bone Spirit. They definitely have much more potential to stack damage on a single target, but the problem is that armor is usually used for other abilities, so it's hard to say whether we'll be able to fully utilize this essence or not. Anyway, let us know what you think about the new essences. The comment section is yours. Consider subscribing to stay up to date with new videos. And as always, thanks for watching.